The sun hadn't cleared the horizon when the rookies started laughing, and the woman with the scar stopped them cold with a single correction. It was 0540 hours at the edge of the Pacific, the air already heavy with salt and heat. The flight line shimmered in a thin haze, jets lined like sleeping predators, their fuselages beating with dew. Before we begin this mission, hit subscribe and ring the bell, because some stories of courage never made the headlines, but they deserve to be heard. Tell us where you're watching from, who's the hero in your family, and let us know in the comments how you liked this story. 4 SEAL trainees stood in formation beside a CH-47 transport, helmets in hand, waiting for the simulated hostage rescue to begin. They were loud, restless, a pack of nerves wound tight beneath cocky grins. Chief Warrant Officer Eli Navarro, callsign Rook, was the youngest. His boots were too clean, his mouth too quick. He elbowed the man beside him, jerking his chin toward a woman standing by the edge of the tarmac. "Guess logistics lost one of their own," he muttered. "Support staff shouldn't wander into the lion's den." The others smirked. The woman didn't react. She wore plain fatigues, no insignia, hair pulled back in a loose knot. A wristwatch flashed on her right hand as she scribbled something in a notepad. There was a faint scar across that wrist, thin, pale, deliberate. Rook turned away, smirking. Bet she doesn't know the difference between an op order and a weather brief. The woman looked up. Her eyes were dark, unreadable. "Alpha 1 to Ops," she said softly. "Verify wind, cross 15 knots, visibility 5 clicks." The air around them went still. Every man turned. "That's the correct call format," she added, voice steady. "If you're going to play soldier, you might as well sound like one." Silence. Even the gulls seemed to pause. Ghost, Lieutenant Marcus Keene, shifted uneasily. He'd spent enough time around command to recognize confidence when he heard it. "Ma'am, you with comms?" he asked carefully. She smiled faintly. "Something like that." Before anyone could speak, a deep voice thundered from behind the hangar. "All right, listen up, meatheads." Commander Hal Mercer, Bulldog, strode into view, chewing gum and radiating irritation. "We're on a strict clock. This isn't boot camp theater." He scanned the group, then caught sight of the woman. His expression changed. Sharp, alert, a trace of respect cutting through the bluster. "Admiral Rios," he said, snapping to attention. "Didn't expect you this early." The rookies froze. Rook's jaw slackened. Ghost's eyes widened. Bulldog's voice filled the gap. "Gentlemen, meet Rear Admiral Dana Rios. She's running this exercise for command." The silence that followed was almost painful. Rios gave a nod, unbothered. "At ease," she said. "This is your field, not mine. I'm just observing. Pretend I'm not here." But no one could. The word Admiral hung in the air like a live wire. Training resumed with a new, uneasy rhythm. The rookies adjusted gear and ran comm checks, whispering when they thought she couldn't hear. Ghost tried to regain control, barking orders, but even he kept glancing toward her. Rios stood by the line, watching, silent, her gaze methodical. Every mistake, every hesitation. She saw it all. At 0610 hours, Bulldog's radio chirped. "Command, this is Mercer." Static. Then a voice came through, tight and coded. "Exercise parameters updated. Expect live variable insertion. Classified. Confirm receipt." Bulldog frowned. "Say again. This is a controlled sim." "Negative, Commander. Variable approved by Admiral Rios. Maintain exercise posture." He looked toward her. She didn't flinch. "Everything all right, ma'am?" Rios slipped the radio from his hand and pressed transmit. "This is Spectre. Copy traffic. Variable acknowledged. Proceed as briefed." The rookies exchanged glances. Ghost stepped forward. "Spectre, ma'am." She met his gaze. "My old call sign. It'll do for today." Bulldog lowered his voice. "Ma'am, command just dropped this without context. What kind of variable are we talking?" Rios studied the horizon. where the faint outline of the ocean glimmered like glass. Does it matter? If they're ready, they'll adapt. If not, we'll find out. Rook swallowed hard. The air felt heavier now. Somewhere down the runway, an engine roared to life, its echo bouncing across hangars and hearts alike. By 06:30, the exercise began. Ghost led his unit toward the helicopter, barking into his headset. "This is Ghost 1. Alpha Team prepped for insertion." "Copy that," Bulldog replied. Rios watched them file aboard, then turned to the mission monitor. Static maps, blinking cursors, simulation overlays. Her face betrayed nothing, but her fingers tapped lightly against her scarred wrist. As the rotors spun, dust and salt whipped through the air. Rios stepped back, shielding her face. The CH-47 lifted, its shadow cutting across the tarmac like a moving scar. For a long moment, she stood alone amid the noise. Her eyes narrowed at the horizon, where the sea blurred into dawn. She spoke softly, almost to herself. "Let's see who breaks first." Bulldog approached, shouting over the wind. "You sure about this, ma'am? Those kids don't even know what's coming." Rios didn't look away. "That's the point. The battlefield never sends a memo." He hesitated, then nodded. "Understood." When the helicopter vanished into the haze, she turned toward the ops tent. The comms techs inside straightened instinctively. She leaned over the table, scanning data streams. "Keep the exercise feed running, but patch me into command secure," she ordered. "Yes, Admiral." She keyed her mic. "Spectre to command, variable acknowledged and in play. Timeline remains on schedule. Recommend no interference unless real-world escalation confirmed." The reply was curt. "Understood. Good hunting, Spectre." She exhaled slowly. For the first time, her eyes softened, just slightly. Then she straightened, reattaching the radio to her belt. Outside, the morning had fully broken. The air shimmered, heat waves rippling off steel. Rios stepped out and paused beside the silent runway. In the distance, the CH-47 was just a speck now, carrying 4 young men who thought they were still playing war. She knew better. The first test had already begun. The sun climbed higher and the wind shifted east, carrying the faint hum of engines toward the sea. Rios glanced at her watch, its second hand ticking with calm precision. "Wind cross 15 knots, she murmured. "Visibility 5 clicks. Perfect conditions for a storm." She walked back toward the control post, the faintest smile tugging at her lips. Somewhere out there, her rookies were about to learn what command really meant. And as the comms line crackled to life with unfamiliar static, Rear Admiral Dana Rios knew the game was about to turn very real. The first explosion wasn't in the script, and that's when Admiral Rios took off her cap and became Spectre. The first explosion wasn't in the script, and that's when Admiral Rios took off her cap and became Spectre. It happened just after noon. The Pacific sun hammered down on the tarmac, turning metal into mirrors and air into haze. The exercise had been running smoothly, too smoothly. Ghost's team had executed a clean hostage extraction drill and were resetting for the next run. Rios watched from the ops tent, one hand resting on the console, the other absently tracing the edge of her wrist scar. The feed from the simulation drones flickered. A faint crackle came through the radio line. At first it sounded like static, then an unmistakable word. "Mayday." Bulldog looked up from the comm board. Was that part of the sim? Before anyone could answer, a second transmission cut through. "This is Patrol, Charlie 2, under fire, repeat, under fire, 12 miles east of Grid Alpha, taking rounds, engine hit, request immediate support." The ops tent froze. The technicians stared at each other, unsure. Ghost's voice came through from the field. "Ops, that live traffic? We reading a script cue or what?" Rios didn't hesitate. She stepped forward, snapped off her cap, and keyed her mic. "This is Spectre. Confirmed distress signal from Allied Patrol Charlie 2, 12 nautical miles offshore. This is not a drill." Bulldog blinked. "Ma'am, command didn't—" "Command's lagging," she said sharply. "We move now." Outside, the helicopter crew waited for instructions. Rios strode out into the sun, her tone precise and surgical. "Ghost, Rook, load real ordnance. M4s, sidearms, standard rescue kit. You're launching in 3 minutes." Ghost's reply carried static and disbelief. "Ma'am, with respect, this is a training op. We don't even have confirmation it's—" "Bearing 046, distance 12 nautical miles," Rios cut in. "Thermal shows 2 hostile boats intercepting from the north. If we wait, they'll be in weapons range in 5 minutes. Move." The air crackled with tension. Ghost hesitated, torn between protocol and instinct. Bulldog gave him a look that said everything. "Don't argue." Ghost exhaled hard. "Copy that, Spectre. Launching in 2. Rios turned back toward the ops board. "Relay my authority to command. Code Spectre 1. All actions under operational discretion." The techs scrambled to comply. Rios's voice was calm, almost unnervingly so. "Vector, Charlie 2 North, thermal lock active, 30-second window," she ordered. "Maintain altitude under radar. If you lose comms, follow beacon Delta 9. The CH-47 lifted from the tarmac in a cloud of grit and rotor wash, angling east toward the glinting ocean." Rios tracked its progress on the monitor, her eyes never leaving the screen. Beside her, Bulldog muttered, "Those are kids out there." She didn't look up. "They won't be after today." Minutes crawled by. The ops tent hummed with quiet dread. On the main display, blips moved across blue grid lines: friendly, unknown, hostile. Rios's voice cut through every silence, precise as a metronome. "Spectre to Ghost 1, visual on contact?" Ghost responded, breath clipped with adrenaline. 12 clicks out. I've got smoke on horizon, Charlie 2 dead in the water. 2 fast movers approaching from bearing 040. "Copy," Rios said. "Hold altitude until 500 meters, then descend hard starboard. Rook, get on the 50 cal. Bulldog, prep medevac on standby." "Roger that," Ghost answered. Then, more quietly, "Ma'am, if you're wrong about that flank—" "I'm not," she said. "Trust your compass and keep your men alive." Ghost didn't argue again. Through the drone feed, the situation unfolded like a nightmare. The patrol boat listed to one side, engine smoke curling black against the sea. 2 hostile crafts cut fast across the waves, closing the distance. The rookies moved exactly as trained, but this wasn't simulation. This was chaos. Gunfire crackled faintly through the feed. Ghost's voice came hard and fast. "Contact! Engaging targets at 500 meters. Taking heavy fire from port side." Rios snapped to the tech. "Switch to thermal." The screen flared red and white. "They're flanking wide," she said, voice razor sharp. "Ghost, break formation. Swing to bearing 046. Do it now." "Negative. That's away from the target." "Do it, or you're dead in 30 seconds. There was a beat of silence. Then Ghost's reply, "Copy, moving 046. The monitor showed the SEAL team's boat veering wide just as a missile sliced through the air, impacting where they'd been seconds before. The shockwave rippled across the feed, scattering water and smoke. "Holy hell," Bulldog breathed. Rios didn't flinch. "Now you flank them from the blind side," she ordered. "They won't expect the turn. Light up their engines. Short bursts only." "Copy that. Weapons free." The rookies moved like veterans now, their fear burned clean by precision. The hostiles faltered, engines sparking as rounds found their mark. Within minutes, the fight was over. Rios's fingers tightened on the console. "Status report." Ghost's voice came back, steady but stunned. "Targets neutralized. Charlie 2 crew alive. 1 wounded. We're bringing them home." For the first time all day, Rios allowed herself to exhale. She stepped away from the console and looked toward the sea. Her voice softened. "Good work, Ghost. Bring them in." "Copy, Spectre." Bulldog turned to her, shaking his head in disbelief. How the hell did you know they'd flank there? Rios's eyes stayed on the horizon. Because that's what I would have done. He said nothing. Outside, the helicopter began its return approach, engines echoing faintly across the bay. The heat shimmered on the tarmac again, but the air felt different now, charged, alive, dangerous. In the ops tent, the rookies' names blinked green across the board. Every one of them accounted for. Every one of them changed. Rios reached for her cap but didn't put it on. She stared at the returning dots on the radar and said quietly, "They learned fast." Then, almost to herself, "Now let's see how they carry it." When the sea went still, no one spoke. The woman they'd mocked now stood in silence as their savior. When the sea went still, no one spoke. The woman they'd mocked now stood in silence as their savior. The storm had passed hours ago, but the air inside the debrief room still felt heavy, metallic, like the echo of spent rounds. The rookies sat at the steel table, eyes fixed on the playback screen. The footage rolled in muted tones. Night vision blur, flashes of muzzle fire, the patrol boat breaking through the dark surf. A line of comms data scrolled along the bottom, each timestamp reminding them just how close they had come to dying. Ghost rubbed his temples, his uniform damp with salt and sweat. Across from him, Rook stared straight ahead, jaw tight, the memory still raw. Bulldog leaned against the far wall, arms folded, gaze locked on Admiral Rios. She stood at the head of the room, back straight, cap under her arm. Her face carried no triumph, no visible emotion, just stillness, the kind that comes after too much noise. The playback ended. Silence followed. The low hum of a ceiling fan filled the space like static. Rios broke it first. Mission parameters were breached. Simulation became live at 1300 hours. You adapted. You followed through. Her tone was calm, not congratulatory. That's the difference between drills and survival. No one moved. Ghost cleared his throat, voice rough. "Ma'am, Admiral, permission to speak freely." She nodded once. "I doubted you," he said. "Thought you were just brass-checking boxes. But out there—" He paused, searching for the right words. "You saw the ambush before any of us did. You saved that crew. You saved us." Rios studied him. "Doubt keeps you alive, Lieutenant, as long as it doesn't make you slow." Ghost gave a small nod, eyes dropping to the table. "Understood." Bulldog stepped forward. "Most of you don't know," he said, voice low. "But this isn't the first time she's pulled people out of the fire." Rios turned toward him, brow tightening. "That's enough, Chief." He ignored her. "Years back, Black Ops mission in the Luzon Strait. Our team got hit during an extraction. She carried 3 men out. One of them was me. Didn't leave until every last one was breathing. Command never logged half of what she did that night." The room was silent again, but now it was a different kind of quiet. The rookies looked at her with new eyes. Not fear, not worship, just the weight of understanding. Rios exhaled slowly, gaze fixed on the floor. "What matters is that we complete the mission. Nothing else." Rook finally spoke, hesitant. "Ma'am, why do you still go into the field? You could run these ops from a desk." Rios turned her head toward him, and for the first time, there was something softer in her eyes. "Because you can't command men you wouldn't die beside." The words hung in the air. Bulldog shifted his weight, swallowing hard. Ghost's posture straightened instinctively as if something old and instinctual in him recognized the truth in it. Rain began to tap against the metal roof, faint but steady. Rios picked up the mission report from the table and slid it into her folder. "Command wants a commendation submitted," she said, tone returning to even control. "I'm declining." Ghost frowned. "Declining? After what happened?" "They don't need a medal," she said. "They need mentorship." Her eyes swept the room, landing on each of them in turn. "Send me their training logs, every one of them. I'll review their progress personally. Rook blinked, unsure how to respond. Bulldog gave a quiet, approving nod. Rios reached for her cap and set it back on her head. Dismissed. For a long moment, no one moved. Then chairs scraped back in unison. Every rookie stood and snapped to attention. It wasn't regulation perfect, but it was real. Earned. As she walked toward the door, Ghost spoke once more. "Ma'am." She paused. "Permission to ask. Spectre. That call sign. You still use it?" Rios glanced back, a faint smile flickering. "Sometimes," she said, "when the job demands a ghost." Rain thickened along the hangar walls as she crossed the flight line alone. The rookies stood silent, watching the woman who had led them through hell without raising her voice. At the tarmac's edge, she acknowledged them. Each returned a slow, deliberate salute. Rios returned it once, then continued toward the pier. The sea shimmered under the rain, a patrol boat drifting distant but afloat. She removed her cap, eyes fixed on it. Behind her, the comms tower crackled faintly. Spectre paused between duty and silence, and the rookies understood. They had witnessed a legend.